Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever this you are on, but welcome to round 4 of the Simufur GT3 Pro Invitational Series. The second half of the season is underway, and where else could be a better place than in a pitch black Laguna Seca? I'm your commentator Suzuka Shark, and alongside me is Wolfin Foxdale. Behind the cameras is Paliku'i.
Hello, everybody. Super excited to be here as we follow Simon Luck on yet another amazing, night here at Laguna Seca as they head down the infamous corkscrew, one of the steepest grades in racing, and it is not. And in ACC, you definitely feel it. It's one of those very tricky corners. As we look at the times are posted up now, we see that Sabre has actually now gotten the fastest lap in 1:23.1. But bear in mind, this is just practice with only less than a minute to go, and then it will be qualifying as Sabre in their nice new, not new, but nice little blue GTR heading down. And if I remember right, Suzuka, I think they were in Huracan last I remembered.
Yes, they were in the Lamborghini for the first half of the season. That was from Spa to what was that? That was the
Uh,
what? Do
I
you know? Was
I
it?
you I don't even remember the last track we were on. It was the last drop.
I just remember Spa and Snetterton. That's what I know.
Yeah, it was
Because I've been there
Snetterton. It was
myself.
Snetterton. It
I
was
just don't know
Snetterton.
round two, but all of that aside, Sabre is now in a GTR as we pan into the shortcut Bluey car of Newt here, who is just coming through turn 5, heading towards turn 6 into the Rahal Straight. Now, Newt right now is in P6 and goes a bit
Ooh,
wide. Ooh! Just gonna.
very wide.
Yeah, that was an invalid lap, that's for sure. And oh, Evan, you just shooting off into the distance, probably to end that lap and get ready for qualifying as time is up. And a lot of these drivers are, as per X Bar Wushel is coming in. Vosti's on an invalid lap, so they should probably be coming in anytime. But right now, the only driver so far to on a valid lap is Wushel. Let's see what they've got as they cross down turn 9. Really nice cornering. The Porsche's really notable for their corner ability. In fact, one Porsche just won the Bothers 12 Hour recently in real life. But here comes Wushel in the final turn, turn 11. Real spin wide. I think that was invalid. Yeah, just
Yeah,
extended the track a bit too much as we head into qualifying.
yeah. Qualifying is up now as we get back live. Azure Goat heading out first, which means a lot of open track for them as they head down the pit lane. Fun fact about this pit lane, unlike most pit lanes, it's actually a fairly long one going into probably one of the tightest horseshoes I have ever seen for a car, and for a pit exit. As Azure is now back on track on turn, I believe that's 3, heading under the bridge as they head toward the Rahal Straight. It's
The
early
rail straight's
laps.
just after turn 6, actually.
Yeah, yeah, turns. Well, I said to the Rahal Straight, but as you can see, they're weaving their tires. The thing about night racing is not only are you contending with the darkness, but you're also contending with very cold temperatures, which could be a big problem, especially going into the corkscrew, because you need as much grip as you can get heading down that hill. One little mistake and it could be game over for your race. As we continue to follow along with Azure heading down the corkscrew and down to the bottom of the hill with a little bit of do a little bit of sparks as we head down toward the last corner.
Absolutely, and we are going on board with the number 765 RRP McLaren of Azure Goat as he puts the power down into the home main straight. It's the first crossing that timing line into turn 1, a slight kink to the left. Coming down into your first braking point, which the Andretti have been hard on the brakes. Try to stay as tight into the corner as possible. Get a nice exit. Get as wide as you can. Don't touch the sand as he comes into turn 3. quite a decent run there into turn 4. Avoid the sausage curbs. These will really bump and upset your car, but as you're doing its best to avoid that, coming into the straight into turn 5, another hard braking point. Go inside. Oh, a bit loose down there, but just makes it just out there. Dab on the brakes, hard left-hander onto turn 6. Go as wide as you can. Don't break the track limits as we go into the very famous corkscrew combination. Hard on the brakes and just try to get the car as slow as possible. Drop down, pin the throttle. Coming into turn 9, a swooping left-hander. Try not to clip the sausage inside, and Andrew's done well. A bit of oversteer, but Andrew's caught it. Into turn 10 he goes, and finally braking hard into the turn 11 final hairpin to complete the lap. It's a rather short lap, but as you're pinning down that power, what will the time be? This is the time that everyone will have to beat. It is a 1 minute 23.2, and immediately Newt just smashes that by 9,000. Caffey smashes that by 122.6. The Rexy Porsche looking unstoppable as per.
Yeah, absolutely. Caffey has just been on an absolute tear this season. I don't think they have lost a single race this entire season, and they intend to. I guess they intend to continue that streak as they head down under the walkway, heading down under the second walkway bridge, as they try to set yet another lap. I'm not seeing anything as far as times go. We do have a pretty big improvement on Caffey's part, but other than that, I don't see any major improvements as they go insanely wide, and that's Azure wide. I don't know what happened there. From where they are, I almost want to say it's the sausage curve. I almost want to say it's a sausage curve as we take another look. Here we go, heading up toward the Ray Hall Straight and toward the land bridge. I am going to take a random guess here and say that it might have been the sausage curve. They head inside, and yeah, the sausage curve kind of got him.
I don't think it's a sausage car. I think he got a bit loose. Too much throttle coming down the exit there. And that can the elevation change can really unsettle a car sometimes.
Yeah, completely understandable. That's why whenever I race here, I am absolutely terrified of that one corner, because it really is just like an insanely unforgiving corner. One little mistake and it is just done. The car will you will just lose all grip, and you just are in the sandbox or into the wall. As we follow along with Simon Luck as they head down toward the final corner. This looks like it'll be a pretty good lap as we head down toward the final straight, and the answer is yes. It's going to be a big gain for Simon, P2, as Simon heads now down toward the Andretti hairpin. Amazing. Simon has just been insanely consistent and just been kind of keeping the nose clean. As I say that, Simon went a little bit wide going out of the Andretti hairpin, as we now switch to Wuschel, who is on a pretty good lap right now, with a 3/10 gain at the moment, heading down toward the corkscrew. Can they gain even more as they head down the bottom of the hill? Nice and easy, no issues so far, as they head into this penultimate corner. Nice and easy, very straightforward, and I think this is going to be a nice big jump for Wuschel heading down toward the final straight. The answer is going to be yes, but no position gained, unfortunately. Heading down toward the main street, is now we follow with Saber, who's also on a pretty good lap. Is this going to be a gain? Again, yes, it's going to be a P2. It's 123, almost flat. So amazing job by Saber, and that's Caffey. That's Caffey in the sand trap. I don't know what happened there.
I think they just abandoned their lap, but let's take a look here in the replays. Caffey coming down into turn, I believe that is turn 4.
Yeah, that's 4.
That's turn 4, going wide, and I think Caffey just abandoned the lap. But anyways, let's talk about but all these times so far, and Caffey It's on pole by 8/10 of a second. There's doesn't look like anything stopping Cafe here from a dominant streak here in Simufur. In fact, this reminds me of a certain championship a few months ago, like where someone was just unstoppable. I wonder who that is.
It totally wasn't. It totally was not a fellow furry that is also technically an esports driver, right?
I was more thinking someone from our team. But yes,
Oh,
you are quite
fair,
right. Anyways, here
fair.
comes Randami on another lap. What will that be? That sends him. That's still 7 for Randami in the Ferrari. In fact, the only Ferrari so far, actually right now on the grid, which is
Yeah,
strange considering how common Ferraris are in your usual ACC lobbies. And
yeah.
here's a slap from Simon, who's second by 5/10, just down on Cafe. Still quite a distance away, but Simon is making progress.
Simon's definitely making progress. They've been doing fairly consistent, having a very consistent lap. As I just noticed. Oh, I was about to say I just noticed. I think Azure's no longer on the board, but then I just noticed they are just a little ways down. Um, the Astons, I think, at least here at Laguna, have been, depending on how well you drive these cars or how well you know these cars. As we see, I think that's RK out in the sandbox, heading on their way to the Rahal Strait. Um, I was gonna say, if you are very consistent. Oh, that's way too wide, and that's definitely going to be an invalidated lap for Simon. Very unfortunate, as it looks like if you know how to like when it comes to the Astons, if they are very safe cars, but if you really want to, if you are very comfortable with them, you know exactly what to do with them. You could really set some amazing lap times, especially here.
Absolutely, we do have a number of Aston drivers, known Aston drivers actually. They're known for mainly the Aston, and they have said that this car is pretty underrated and quite a weapon when you learn to love it. Unfortunately, I just don't see my driving style fit that car, but whatever suits them, of course. And it's really paying off for Simon Luck, that's for sure. And here comes Cafe on another flyer coming into turn 9, but currently they are 2/10 down on their best lap, so I don't think this is going to be an improvement from them, unfortunately. But Cafe is nonetheless coming down the final corner to set a. I think this next lap is going to be their qualifying lap.
Yeah, I think so. They're about 8/10 off, so this will be a main flyer lap as they head down toward the Andretti hairpin. Nice and easy. Um, it's these Porsches have been just absolutely dominant, both in real life and in virtually. They've just been one of those cars. Like if you know how to drive these cars, and are willing to put in the time and effort into getting used to a car like this, which is very unforgiving. Like you have to. This car, if you do not treat it well, it will bite back. It is definitely not for somebody just getting into sim racing, but if you are able to get used to the car like this, you could set insane lap times, as Cafe has proven with time and time again, heading up toward the Rahal Strait, nice and easy. And it's it's one of the, like I said, it's just one of those cars you can. I couldn't see myself driving unless I get really used to it, but I mean, if you want to go for the challenge, this is definitely a car to do it in.
Absolutely. P is for powerhouse. P is for Porsche. These cars have been quite a force to be reckoned with throughout motorsports history, going back to the 24 Hours of Le Mans with their oh so powerful 917s, 96. Was that? Nine, oh, that is Azure in third. I think Azure just set a better lap time just now, which is a 7/10 down, but still, that sends him into the second row.
Yeah, this is par for this. I wouldn't say it's par for the course, but Azure has had. I know Azure has been talking about having a little bit of problems with Laguna Seca in this car, and it's honestly been the McLaren curse with Laguna Seca. McLarens have just not done well here because it's a very tight, close quarters track. There's not a lot of places for the aero to really work with this car. So like these cars just do not agree with this track, and you could see just by the lap times Azure has been able to set, they've not been really able to be on pace as they normally have, and it's unfortunate, but what can you do? You just gotta uh, bite down and keep going at this point, and just try to go for the points, and that's exactly what Azure's doing. They are now in third, and I think that's what they're probably just going to aim for at this point. Just keep their position and try to keep maybe a hope for a championship alive.
Absolutely, the McLaren not having its brightest moments here in Laguna Seca. You know, a car that is so aero dependent and slightly weaker on the brakes, when Laguna Seca is a more technical track with lots of braking zones and low speed corners. The McLaren just doesn't shine, but Azure carrying that car to third, that is a brilliant job. Brilliant credit to him. But we also have Cafe, who set a new lap time, as you saw, a 1:22.1, further increasing that gap. And once again, I don't think anyone's stopping him.
Yeah, as we follow along now with RK in the other McLaren heading down the corkscrew, they're on a half-second gain. As if they keep this up, this could be a nice big jump for them. I think it'll put them in, yeah, around the top 3 or P4. We'll see if this keeps up. They're heading down to the last corner, losing a little bit of time heading into the brakes. Let's see if that matters. It looks as though it might. I think it might just drop them down to P4. The answer is no. It'll only be a 1 position gain, but a position gain nonetheless, a 1:23.2. I think it's unfortunately, I think they lost a lot of time going into that final corner, because they lost about 2/10 heading into that corner as RK goes super wide going out of the Andretti hairpin and has to bail into the sand trap, as Azure with another improvement, not going to be a position gain, but a nice time of a 1:22.7. You can see that most of the field has been fairly close, maybe about 1 or 2 tenths off, and then there's Caffey with a 1:22.1. I honestly don't think that anyone's going to be anywhere close to that time. As we follow along now with Wishel as they head down toward the final corner with a 3/10 gain. Let's see if that gives it to them. They were really wide going out of that corner. I think it still counted. The answer is yes, and they're going to gain another position, putting themselves in P4.
Absolutely, shades of F1 2023 here with this grid. You have Cafe quite a long way, and then the rest of these guys, they're considerably close. But you just don't know, because the track is improving. Because right now it's fast conditions. The track, the more these drivers run, the more rubber is laid on this racetrack, and the more grip you have, which increases the lap times. And Wushel right now I think they've lost their time throughout that corner, but they were on a grind earlier.
Yeah, an absolute grind, and they're trying their hardest to see if maybe they can get a podium out of this. Unfortunately, they haven't really gained any time on this lap, but I think, as you said, they went wide, so I think that's just going to be a tribute to it. But Wishel overall has just been very consistent and been in those fights and done very well. So I'm interested to see how well that Porsche is going to hold out during the race, as Wishel now heads down the final corner, and no issues whatsoever, but unfortunately no time gained. So at this point, it's just a matter of, with 4 minutes left on the clock, it's going to be now or never to see if you can set those lap times. Simon is definitely going to try. They are about 1/10 up. It may not be a lot, but that could be improved vastly, especially when you come down to corkscrew, or you could lose time. And in this case, they are just about on their time as they push really hard, trying to gain as much time as they can, keeping it nice and easy, because all you need is just that one good corner, and that could gain you 2 or 3 tenths right there. As Simon does just that, they've gained a 10th. The answer is it's not going to be a pole-sitting lap, but definitely a little bit of an improvement, a 1:22.5. They're inching very closer and closer to Caffey's lap time. So I do hope that maybe we gain a little time as we now follow along with Newt heading up the Rahal Straight on their way to the corkscrew, nice and very composed, a little squirrely going out of that corner, but they were able to save it as they now prep themselves up into the corkscrew. The the Astons have actually, as far as like in the corkscrew, they've been doing fairly well. It looks like.
I mean, it's no surprise considering the very stable platform of these Aston Martins. It's Newt right here currently. I think they've lost a bit of time coming off that corner, but let's see where that takes Newt. And I don't think that's a fast lap. They're just on par with their delta, but not quite. But Simon Luck right now, who's 1/10 down on their lap time, they're losing a bit of time, but they are just on the limit. They're trying to find the places where they can find an advantage and close down on that gap with Caffey. And speaking of that, Simon Luck on the final corner, that is a improvement for Simon, who was 1/10 down, and another surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. That is Randomy in fourth, who's recently set a lap time in that Ferrari.
Yeah, an absolute monster lap. They snuck in out of nowhere. I actually didn't even notice until we were pointed it out that they had snuck into P4. That Ferrari it is doing insanely well, and they've been keeping it consistent. And I will say, when I drove this car at Laguna, it's definitely one of those cars that, despite the aero dependency, it's not as dependent as, say, the McLaren. So you can kind of get away with some of the shorter corners, but you're definitely not going to do well as, like, say, like a Porsche a or something that doesn't really depend on downforce.
Absolutely, Saber is here on the final. Good lap. That pushes them to third. That just dethrones Azurgold from the top three. Saber in that GTR already showing improvement. Looks like this car switch may have been a good decision for him.
Absolutely, they've already mained us GTRs. They get really loose going out of turn 4. They were able to save it, but that's not going to help their lap time any. But as I was saying, Saber has been primarily a GTR driver, but due to the bop and the fact that these cars have not really gotten love up until recently, he's never really had to drive it up until now, and he's showing why he's good in this car with an amazing P4. But unfortunately, that wiggle has cost him a lot of time. And unfortunately, this is going to be their last lap. Only 2 seconds left on the clock. They are not going to be able to set another lap time, and that would mean Caffey with. I don't see anyone getting anywhere close, so that will be a provisional pull for Caffey, unless some miracle happens, as Newt goes insanely wide going out of the bottom of the hill, and that's going to invalidate their lap, unfortunately, as they head into pit lane. But But as I say that, RK has an improvement on their time, a 1:22.9. Amazing time coming in clutch at the last second as the last of our cars are heading into either pit lane or you're finishing up their lap. Actually, that is our lap. So we are now done with qualifying, and that means Caffey is now locked in their pole position.
It was really close in the end, because right at that final moment, Simon Luck is P2 by 0.06 of a second, which he's so close. He's edged so close to that number 21 Porsche, and it's really going to be an interesting story coming into the race, because who will get that jump into turn 2, the Andretti hairpin? Is it going to be the Porsche, or will Simon find a way to lead this race?
Yes, and Simon has been very quiet as of late, but now they've sent out a huge message, now putting themselves in P2, only a 10th behind Caffey, a time that I didn't honestly think could be beat. I was proven wrong. Well, I wouldn't say I've been proven wrong, but I've definitely been proven that it wasn't an unbeatable time. It is possible. They've gotten close. and that is all you need, especially in a race. You just need to be within a tenth or so to keep everything going. So this may turn out to be a very interesting race, especially at the start if Simon's able to get a really good launch.
Absolutely. You just don't know with these races. That's what I love. The qualifying may the qualifying may show the fastest driver in one lap, but the real story here is who is going to be fastest throughout the whole hour of the race.
Yes, as we go down the main grid, it looks like we're still waiting on the server to tick over to racing. So we're just patiently waiting for the server to switch as we head down to or as we wait patiently. I gotta ask you, Suzuka, do you think this is gonna be yet another Caffey runaway?
As much as I know the inevitable is going to happen, Cafe is going to win. I still have hope that someone else will be taking home a trophy, a golden first place trophy here. And I believe that Laguna Seca, a very atrocious track, will have something to do. It always has something in mind. It always has secrets that it's hiding, and when that box opens, oh, we're definitely in for a treat. That's for sure.
I agree. I do hope that as interesting as it is, the midfield has been the where all the fights have been going on, and it's been very close and very competitive. And I hope that it remains that way as we see that the drivers have gridded up as we get ready for our as we get ready to set everything as we get ready for everything to get going. The I will say the smaller field for for the race will kind of I think play a little bit of a role here because if you have larger fields on a track like this, it gets very chaotic very quickly. But with this smaller field, I think things are going to be a lot more interesting and a lot more tame. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens now.
Absolutely. This is where Laguna Seca shines. Very small grids. This is a nicely sized grid, and don't forget, this is the Simufur Pro class, so lots of racing inbound for sure. As we head As we head into our current grid walk, we have the number 21 Rexy Porsche of Cafe taking that pole position spot with a 122.1, with Simon alongside in the front row, only 600s down on that lap time. Behind them in the second row, that GTR sneaking into the third position of Saber with an absolute stonking lap time. Let's see what that GTR will do in the start. But alongside him is the number 765 RRP McLaren of Azure Goat, who who's probably happy to just be here, that's for sure. Behind them in the third row, we have the number 73 Ferrari of Randomy and the number 69 Short Racing of Wushel, the another Porsche in the roster, the second one to be specific. And for the fourth row, we have the number 250 McLaren of RK, and next to him, the number 272 Shortcut Bluey car of Newt. And filling up those final two grid spots, we have the number 808 of MN underscore, another GTR in this grid, and completing the top 10. Completing this grid is the number 15 Take Gang racing car of Vossi.
Yes, and as we still wait for them to fire up their engines and get going, it's definitely I I'm definitely excited, but it's going to be interesting to see how this start goes because technically the inside line would be the preferred line, especially going into the hairpin. But you got to remember the Aston actually, if I remember right, has a bit of a higher top speed than the Porsche. So if Simon's able to get an incredibly good launch, they may be able to kind of sneak in and maybe get the lead before they head into the Andretti hairpin.
And speaking of that start, I have a feeling that GTR might just sneak up to the top two, because you remember that GTR, very powerful car, very good top line speed. So it's going to be interesting to see if that GTR can make the jump on the Porsche and the Aston.
Yeah, I agree. That GTR is definitely going to be an interesting threat as they head down to the Andretti hairpin, getting those tires warm up. You can see some of the cars were weaving left and right to get those tires nice and toasty. You're definitely going to need it in a night race. There's not a lot of temperature to get those tires. There's not a lot of heat to get those tires warmed up. So it's all a matter of trying to get as much temp as you can in those brakes and in those tires, so that way you're ready to go for the race start. As we follow along now with the 10th place car of Vossi sitting in the back. I gotta be honest, I think Vossi might actually have a bit of an advantageous spot being in the back, because all of the carnage is going to happen in front of them. They're going to have plenty of time to either avoid or miss all of any accidents or incidents that may happen. So I'm wondering if maybe this was a strategic position, because I don't think they actually set a time in qualifying.
I think I'm not sure about qualifying, but absolutely, I think you're right, because Vossi does have an advantage of his own too. If a lot of these drivers if these drivers get into an accident, Vossi can capitalize on those lost positions from them and make it his own gain, as you see Azure and the rest of the front runners come up into the corkscrew, and they will probably be lining up double file. They are lining up double file right now. We are almost ready to race.
Yep, double file now, heading down to the bottom of the corkscrew, meaning that it is almost time to start the round 4 of the Simufur series. Cafe getting themselves in position, as we see Simon weaving left and right, getting themselves ready to get the car, as those tires as warm as they can, heading down toward the final corner before they get ready to go green. As any second now we're gonna go racing, and it's gonna be interesting, that's for sure.
Absolutely, here we go. Final corner. These cars are making their way around. Simon and Cafe, they are side by side. Who will get the lead into turn 1? As we wait for the green flag to wave. And here we go. It's a great start for Cafe. Azur's got the jump on Saber, and Simon just tucked in behind. That's Saber and Azure side to side coming into turn 2, and it's clean so far. It's great racing all around. It's surprisingly clean coming down the Andretti hairpin, but Cafe with an advantageous lead into this race. As we see Saber just tucked in behind. I think Azure got the jump for sure, that's for sure. As we see Newt and MNU go too wide. That's Arcane Randomy as well. We have 4. We have a huge battle right here in the back. With MNU going very wide. That's Randomy. I think Randomy's dropped quite a number of places. That is unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunately, Randomy got into a little bit of a scuffle with Arcade going into turn 4, and it cost them dearly. They've dropped about 5 positions as they head up toward the corkscrew. As we follow along with M&U, they're right behind on the bumper of Randomy, keeping it nice and clean in this first lap. Because remember, it's still early in the game. They still got an hour to get some jobs done. Let's see what happens as they head down to the bottom of the hill. No issues so far. So this looks like it's going to be a nice, clean first lap, which is what you want. You don't want any chaos, especially early on. Now following along with Azure as they sit in P3. They had an amazing jump on Saber, and were able to get that spot going in the Andretti hairpin. As we see now, Azure has their sights set on Saber to see if maybe they can make a move here, but no luck so far. Battle for 9th position, or for 8th position, between MNU and Randomy continues as they head down toward turn 4. Vossi just sitting in nice and cool in the back, seeing maybe they can pluck somebody off as they make a move. As we see that as Wushel tried to go for a move going on the outside, didn't really work out, and unfortunately, it's going to play advantage to RK, who is now right on the bumper of Wushel, heading into turn 6. That is probably not a place they want to fight, and RK knows that. They're going to back off and let Wushel keep the spot.
Absolutely no heroics into the corkscrew. Two rarely go to one here, and you do not want to play your risks, roll the dice, and just bring the car home, and just don't do anything stupid, and just just make it to the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like things in the field have kind of evened out. I don't really see any major battles as we see Caffey has set the fastest lap with a 1:23 flat early on, but right now it looks like everything's kind of evened out, and people are just settling in and getting into their grooves and trying to see if maybe they can make their opponent make a mistake. As I say that was MNU getting really squirrely going into the Andretti hairpin, but they were able to save it. But unfortunately, it's going to cost them a little bit of time on Randomy.
Absolutely. As we look back into lap 1, let's check the cameras here. Well, we have here, that's quite a scuffle. That is a huge scuffle as RK goes down the inside of Randomy. And I think Randomy and RK still fighting there into turn 4. And
yeah, they got squeezed.
There was a little contact, and Randomy goes wide into the sand, just throws him into the scuffle. And that's MNU! That's MNU wide!
That's MNU super wide. I think they might have hit the wall there as well. We're going to have to take a look at that in a second. Yeah, we're going to head back now. Let's see what happened here. I think the sausage crew... No, wait a minute. That's RK, who's also fallen behind. I don't know what happened there, but... yeah, they went wide to avoid RK. Yeah, they had a lot of understeer going out of that corner because they had to avoid RK and go wide to that corner, and that's super unfortunate. As Vossi, Vossi has also lost a lot of time. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, we're gonna find out what happened. Let's take a look.
So we're heading down toward turn 9, I believe so, and
yeah,
I think
that is 9.
I think it happened down turn 10. Yeah, a bit too wide on turn 10, and just loses the car, almost hits the wall.
They do bonk the wall.
A mild tap though. Yeah, mild tap, that's for sure.
Yeah, but a little bit of a bonk there, but nothing too major. They'll be able to fix that up nicely in pits during their pit stop. It's going to cost them, but at least it's nothing too horrible. As we see Randomy now pushing on Randomy got a little bit of squirrely going out of that corner, but they were able to save it. Now heading deep into the corkscrew as they try to chase down the 272 of Newt, and the Ferrari is definitely going to have the advantage going down to the corkscrew with that, even with that turbo lag, as they head down toward the penultimate corner, down to the last corner. Randomy now just picking their time and seeing maybe they can make Newt make a mistake.
Absolutely, but that Aston trying to run away, trying to make that Aston as wide as possible. But I think that defense is good enough to keep Randomy right behind. Randomy a bit late on the brakes, Randomy quite wide there. And I think it's just really close between these two, that's for sure.
Yeah, Randomy is giving it everything they can to try to keep up with Newt. And that was a little bit of a scary moment as Newt once again as Randomy once again goes wide. That car is insanely slippery right now. Maybe they had a little bit of an issue with their tires or something from their little trip to the gravel, but they're definitely giving it all they can to try to keep try to make a move on Newt. And unfortunately now they've also got the problem of RK right behind them, who's now also on a recovery drive. We still don't really know what happened. As we say, Wushel's trying to make a very daring move in the corkscrew.
That is the corkscrew! Wushel! Can she do it? Oh my goodness! Round the outside! Coming into the inside of turn 9 and not quite! Saber defense valiantly, but also a brave effort from the number 69 Porsche of Wushel.
That was... Yeah, let's take another look at that. That was incredibly brave going to course. And that is exactly why Saber had an issue going out of turn 6. and it allowed Wushel to open the doors right for Wushel. Too wide going into the corkscrew. What a very brave move. But hats off to both our drivers for being able to keep it together and not causing an incident. And Wushel wisely gives the position back to Saber. They didn't want that fight there, and it's going to play out to them later. They're going to try again afterwards.
Absolutely, Wushel putting us at the edge of our seat with that. Oh my goodness, and Wushel still trying to chase and put pressure on the number 523 GTR of Saber.
Yeah, and that was a very scary move. I imagine some people were holding their breath doing that, because that could have ended absolutely horribly as we return back toward turns. I believe that's turn 6, heading up the Rahal Straight. And I think it evened out, and I think we've got a yellow flag on randomly. I think maybe they went a little bit wide heading out of the corner. Yeah, it was an off track as they head down toward the corkscrew.
Absolutely, another yellow. That is Vossi. A lot.
Yeah.
We got a number of people being caught out by that turn 6 corner. I wonder if it will come into play later on in the race.
Yeah, we're gonna head back to randomly, see what happened there. I think they just got a little bit squirrely trying to catch up to Newt, or maybe the sausage. Actually, it was in turn 6. I think. Oh, it was a sausage
deep.
curve.
Yeah,
way
too
deep
inside.
Way too deep going inside, hitting, and they almost hit that sausage curve, but they were able to save it. But unfortunately, it caused them to go super wide into the sandbox. As we go back live with Simon, who's has a nice little gap on P2. Yeah, nice little gap to Azure, but who else has a gap but Caffey with a massive 4-second gap, and it is still climbing. Caffey once again going to be running away with this race as they head down toward the corkscrew. And I think we predicted this, that if Caffey was given open pavement, that was going to be it, and I think that's it, as we see Azure going really deep on the brakes, trying to gain as much time as they can on Simon, and no close but no cigar as they head down toward the bottom of the hill.
Absolutely, Azure trying to get as close to Simon as much as he can, trying to get advantage and trying to steal that second place away. But at the moment, oh, that's Vossi stopped on track. I think they're retiring from this race, and I think they have. We'll look back at the replay of the number 15 and see what's going on, and looks like number 15, I think that is I think it's another turn 6 incident. Yes, it is. Too deep on the inside, going very wide, and just Vossi. I think Vossi's had enough and just returns to the pits. Yes, he does. That's rather unfortunate to see, but number 15 is not going to finish this race as far as we know.
Yeah, it's super unfortunately that corner has been catching a lot of drivers out, and it's a like I said, it's a very unforgiving corner. One little mistake and that's it. And you really got to be cautious when going into that corner, trying to make any moves in and around that corner, because it could end horribly for you. As Caffey right now, well, basically on a cruise, they've got nobody in or around them. So at this point, it's just for Caffey, it's just drive and keep that gap going.
Absolutely, but Newt right now, who's one of the gainers here of this race, who is currently up into P6, the most positions out of anyone here. That shortcut blue E-car is just remaining quiet and just keeping it clean and taking the points where it counts in this race.
I'd also like to point out that we have a new purple lap. That's Saber. I didn't see the time. Oh, it was a 1:22.2, almost on par with Caffey's qualifying lap, and that is on race fuel. Oh! As we see Nuke really getting loose, and they able to save it.
Unfortunately.
Oh, they got insanely loose going out of turn 4, but they were able to save it. Very unfortunate, but I want to point out Saber with a 1:22.2. That's almost qualifying pace. Saber's giving it everything they've got, and they're going to try to maybe gain on Azure, and they are slowly but surely trying to reel Azure in as they go really deep on the brakes, hitting into the corkscrew, trying to gain as much distance as they can on Azure and in that lead pack.
Absolutely. I just want to apologize to Newt for that commentary curse. I think that's what happened right there. But anyways, Saber coming in and joining this battle, turning into a three-way battle for P2. This is going to be an interesting story developing into the final stage.
Yeah, I see that we have a slow car P. I think MNU has gone wide. Or maybe our system has gone a little bit wonky. Yeah, I think so. Because I saw our little blip of yellow flag coming from over where they were, but I guess not. But to go back to Saber, that was an insane time. They're going to try to do it again. And I think that was Azure that went a little bit wide going out of the corner, as Saber is now just trying to make up as much time as they can. If they keep these laps up, they might even be able to challenge Caffey at this rate.
Absolutely, but I just want to point out that this battling may as well give Caffey a huge lead, make that gap even larger than it is. Currently 3.3 seconds. 3 seconds ahead of Simon. It might as well be 4 seconds if these guys continue to squabble. So I think the key thing to do here right now is to just follow each other, help each other, try and close that gap. Just something like NASCAR, just team up and just help each other with the slipstream.
Yeah, and I'm also looking at Delta. MNU once again, I think, really far behind. I think they spun somewhere, but as we follow along with Newt, Randomy is gaining on Newt now that they have open tarmac, and they were able to unfortunately with that mistake from Newt, as Randomy goes really deep and the brakes going in the Andretti hairpin that almost got into the back end of Newt. Very close call there, as Randomy is just trying to gain every inch he can, and it's working out. I think Newt actually just touched the sausage curve a little bit, and that's going to help out Randomy tremendously as they head down toward turn 5. Nice and easy. You can see we have on board with Randomy heading down toward heading out of the corner a little bit. Oh, that's really wide from Newt, right into the sandbox. That's not going to help them much as they dab on the brakes, heading into the corner. Ooh, Randomy again. Like, that car is incredibly loose going into that corner, and they are giving it everything they can. As again, they go fairly deep into the brakes as they head down the corkscrew. Randomy, I think, maybe getting an advantage in the second sector, trying to work a distance into that gap of Newt as they head down toward the final corner, trying everything they can to get a move. That was incredibly brave, going very deep on the brakes going into the final corner, and unfortunately it didn't pay off because now Newt is once again getting a nice big gap from that.
Absolutely, it is Newt versus Randomy Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, as the two are crossing lines again, and I think this is going to be a duel to look forward to come the end of this race.
I agree. That's if after pit stops they're still this close. It will depend on pit strategies when it comes down to it, and I think at this point Newt's just trying to survive and try to keep that gap between him and them and Randomy as wide as they can, and it's been working out fine. So long as they don't make a mistake.
Oh, there's one.
Again, I swear, we're in the same team and we're screwing them with commentary curses. As we see Randomy, that's really deep. That's a wreck.
Oh, that is so wide. That is a big off.
That was a very big off. Going into the corkscrew, it looks like they locked up, tried to avoid hitting Randomy, and unfortunately, let's take a look at that again. That was very... I saw it at the very last second. Yeah, they were very loose.
Coming down the Ray Hall straight, and let's see how late they are. I think that... Yeah. Oh, ooh. That is... Oh, too late. Oh, sliding into that, and it is a massive off. Thankfully, just lightly tapping the barriers and just rejoining as safe as they can, but that's going to be a huge hit on the number 73 Ferrari of Randomy.
Yeah, but look who else is gaining time. That's Azure gaining a lot of time on Simon. They're definitely going.
Oh, that's Wushel! That's
yeah,
turn.
That looks like it's
That's turn 4. That's
yeah, that looks like it's
turn 4. I wonder what's happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Something did. Maybe they got loose or something. Let's take a look and see what happened. This track has been very... Here we go, heading down toward... yeah, that is turn 4. Heading down into the corner. I don't...
Yeah, I think they've just gone really wide, touched the sand, and just loses that control of that Porsche.
Yeah, that's incredibly unfortunate. They just went a little too wide going into that corner. Back live with Azure chasing Simon, and the gap is getting closer and closer as we see the gap between Caffey as well. The gap was 4 seconds between Simon and Caffey. It is now dropped to half, about maybe, or actually down a second. So I don't know what happened there, but now Simon's now got to play not only catch up, but they've also got to be defensive because Azure's right on the bumper of Simon, trying to find a way around as we head down toward turn 5. Ooh, a little wide, but no big deal. Azure's going to keep pushing as they head down to the corner. Azure's been very consistent in keeping Simon right in their sights, and Saber at the moment just sitting back, maybe hoping for a mistake to happen.
Absolutely. These three are trying to get as close to each other as they can. Saber not so close back, but trying to make his way towards those two. As speaking of going to back of one another, there is Randomy right behind the tail end of the number 6 side Porsche as he goes very wide. Nice save from Randomy as they head into turn 6 into Real Straight. It's clean so far, thankfully, and clearly 2 don't make it to 1, so no one's going to make risks here.
Are you sure about that?
Oh my goodness, Randomy putting us on the edge of our seat with that late braking, trying to find the gap behind that number 69 Porsche. It goes really late again. I think Randomy just getting Wushel on the brakes, but Wushel, that number 69 Porsche, has got some legs, has got the acceleration, that NA Boxer engine over a turbocharged V6.
Yeah, and that Boxer engine is doing the work. It's definitely been helping her get out of the corners a lot faster. I'd also like to point out...
that's Randomy and Wushel side to side. It's getting closer than ever, but not quite, as Randomy has to settle back for the tail of Wushel once again.
Yeah, they've been making very bold moves going into that corner. I'd also like to point out we've hit the 40-minute mark, which means pit lane is now open. It is a required pit stop for this race, so they're going to have to now... So strategies are now going to come into play. And remember, this is a very long pit stop, or a very long pit lane, so the times are definitely going to come into play as Randomy is now backing off a little bit off Wushel, maybe to see if maybe they can make a move later on, heading down into the corkscrew. No issues whatsoever, as Wushel is having a little bit of trouble. I think they're getting a little bit... Their tires may not be in the best of shapes after that spin, as they head down toward the penultimate corner. Is anyone going to box? I don't think so. It's a little bit too early, maybe. As down into the last corner, Randomy once again fairly late on the brakes to try to gain as much distance as he can, and no luck. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens now.
Absolutely, but let's not forget as well, Randomy, who's had that spin almost running into the back of Newt. So I think Randomy's tires are just as destroyed as Wushel's, but these two, I think their best option is to stop as early as they can and try and hold on to those tires, those fresh set. That is much better. As we go back for the battle of P2 now, Azure 1 second behind, but Saber closing in. He's already under once, fluctuating between 1 over and under 1 second behind Azure. These guys won. Oh, I think they're already one. And scratch that, 1 second apart of each other. These guys are. This going as Saber is starting to gain on those two.
Yes, definitely. As we follow along with Saber, who goes incredibly wide going into that corner. That GTR has just been putting in the work. I guess Saber has once again found this car that he can get along with, and it is paying dividends. Now sitting in P4 as he tries to reel in Azure as much as he can. So far, no pit stops as we see Saber going a little wide. No, didn't touch the sand, thankfully, but that was a bit deep than they would have probably liked. Heading down into the corner, and it's a little bit there.
All right, that's looking into Caffey with that 3-second lead. A dominant performance once again from the number 21. This going to play into what strategy they will take, because they do have the advantage of staying out as long as they can and just waiting for the others to make their pit stops before they make their own and have the fresher tire advantage come the latter end of the stints. Or Caffey could do the undercut and hope that nobody's in front of him. Try to make as much time in the pits as they can, trying to capitalize on fast laps, which let's be honest, I think Caffey here is the second fastest on the grid. Because currently Saber has the fastest lap, so this is going to be an interesting play in strategies.
Yeah, as we see it, Saber is once again caught up to the back bumper of Azure, heading down into turn 5, looking for a move. As we see Saber getting a little wide, just a little wide, and very squirrely going out of the corner, but not a lot of time lost. And to point to what you were talking about, Suzuka, Caffey was, at least the past few races, has drawn out their pit strategy as much as they can. They've stayed very late, hoping that, anything can happen. And to the surprise of me, Azure has not gone in early. Azure's staying out. I'm wondering if maybe they've changed their pit strategies for this race to see if it'll work. Right now, it's not working because Saber is right on the bumper of Azure, giving them trying to make a move, heading down toward the corkscrew. Let's see if Saber is going to try to maybe make a bold move going into the last corner, as Saber is now just sitting behind. I guess they're going to try to wait to see who's going to pit first, because as of right now, nobody has pit. So I'm wondering if something happened, as we see Saber once again flashing the lights at Azure, telling them, I am here and I am not going away anytime soon, so watch out, as they head through the Andretti hairpin. As we follow on board, Saber just trying to find one little gap to see if maybe they can make a move, and Saber just biding their time. Let's see what happens. Both of them kind of go a little bit wide, but Azure's going to be the benefactor of this. They get a nice launch going out of the corner and into the next corner.
Not a good corner for Saber down turn 5. I think they clipped a bit of sand. No, this is turn 6 actually. Coming into the warehouse straight. And speaking of pit stops, we have our first pit stop of this race, which is the number 73 of Randomy. Now, of course, he wants those tires gone as fast as possible. Those tires definitely went through a lot spinning in the corkscrew. So Randomy is going to try and take advantage of these fresh tires in the middle of the stint and just wait for the positions to be gained in the pits. And speaking of Caffey, once again staying out, again a 4-second gap, nearly a 4-second gap, but nonetheless Caffey looks like he's destined to be staying out as long as they can, waiting for the others to screw up, waiting for the others to make their own pit stops, and once again possibly run away with the win with another win in their belt.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out Randomy also had a little bit of damage, because remember, they tapped the wall going out into the corkscrew, it wasn't major, but you know that's still time lost in the pits. So whether if Randomy actually repaired it, it might not have been minor enough to just ignore it, and they'll just live through it as Caffey a little wide going out of the corner, but no issues on their way to the corkscrew. As so far, Caffey's been just kind of just cruising along, keeping their times fairly well in the both in the 123s and the 122s. So we'll just have to wait and see. But let's see if anyone else is going to pit soon, because we're almost halfway through our race and still no pits. As I say that, Azure has just gone into pit lane. It looks like Azure's going to maybe go for the undercut here and see if maybe they can gain some spots.
Absolutely, Azure going for the undercut, trying to take advantage of Simon in the pits by setting those fast lap times, because looking at Randomy, he does have clean air, only a few seconds behind Saber, so surely, and as I say that, there's also coming into the pits is the number 272 Shortcut Bluey car of Newt, another stopper in this time, which is, I think this is smack dab in the middle as soon as they come out of the pits.
Yeah, definitely. So early stops are now coming into play as Azure is out, jacks are down, and they are out and away, heading toward the pit straight. Nice, no issues there.
Oh,
As I say that, wait, what?
Azure
That's
stopped.
Azure stopped.
What's going on? What?
Azure disconnected. What?
I think
Azure's
Azure's retired from the race. That's unfortunate. And they've been on a decent run. I wonder what's happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there either.
From what I've heard, I think from what I've heard before, I think they've been having force feedback troubles with their wheelbase, which is, I think, an R9 V1, a older model from Moza Racing. So it must, if my theory is right, it's probably some gremlins in the system, the physical system of Azure.
I don't know. The other thing that I'm thinking of, maybe they got caught speeding, because we didn't really see them go in. So I'm wondering if maybe they got hit by a speed, because that was like immediate. After they crossed the line, they got hit. They just stopped. So I'm wondering what could have happened there. But super unfortunate. Azure was on an amazing run, but definitely is super unfortunate for them. As we follow again with Caffey, who's now got that gap has now gotten a lot bigger, as Simon is now also in pit lane and heading out now with, again, they're slow because of the
hairpin.
But yeah, the hairpin.
And we just received notice that the retirement of Azure was due to a pit stop penalty, which would have given him a stop and go 30, which is absolutely going to send him in the back. So it's a rather unfortunate case for Azure.
Yeah, at that point, it's just like it's super unfortunate, but what can you do? As Caffey now is running into a little bit of lap traffic in the form of RK. We'll see what happens here. RK obviously is going to let them by, but the question is where, as we see RK get really squirrely into the brakes. They were able to save it, but thanks to that, Caffey was just able to go right on by. So the only cars that have not pitted are Saber, Caffey, and and MNU.
Absolutely.
So let's just wait and see who's going to pit first. As, RK kind of hitting the bumps there going into the corkscrew. Maybe they just have a little bit of issues there, as Caffey, no problems whatsoever as we follow along. It looks like everything's kind of evened out, and now it's just a matter of waiting to see what's going to happen next.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see, because talking about those staying out, we have Caffey who has another lap traffic right behind him. It's Newton with fresh tires. Meanwhile, Saber has the clean air. So does Eminu has Simon right behind him. That 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 is an interesting case, because I wonder how this will pay out for those who are staying out and going long. Can they use these tires to make some overtaking?
Yeah, maybe we'll have to see. I think the only like the two drivers that I expect that could take advantage of when Caffey pits would be Saber and Simon, and Simon has already gone in, and at the moment nobody has beaten Saber's time, and Saber has been um actually looking at my times, Saber has actually been faster than Caffey in some aspects. Their last lap was a 123.0, while Caffey's was a 123.1. So the tires are definitely playing a part, and Saber is definitely the benefactor of this. So we'll wait and see. Let's see who draws first.
Absolutely. As MNU dives into the pits, that GTR coming in for their mandatory pit stop. But I also want to say, Saber has been getting faster in race trim than Caffey, so it is an interesting story for sure to unfold. But these guys, they are currently 7.7, they're currently 8 seconds apart, so Saber has a mountain to climb if he somehow wants to take the win of this race.
I think at this point, if Saber's got the times, I'm wondering if maybe Saber's going to wait for Caffey to go in and go for the undercut, which could play very well for Saber. If that's the case, and it could work out beautifully, it's just a matter of if it works out. So it's an 8-second gap and the pit strat and the pit lane. So we'll just have to wait and see.
We have 5 minutes until pit window closes. I think they are edging it out as far as they can, trying to pit at the very last minute of that pit window. So it's going to be interesting to see this strategy unfold, because one risk of the strategy is that you might miss out on pit window, and if you can't serve your pit window, you can't serve your mandatory pit stop, then you have a hefty penalty to pay.
Yeah, definitely. It's a massive penalty. And I think at this point, it's this Caffey trying to see who's going to trying to get Saber to draw first.
Saber's in the pit. Saber's dropped the gun, and Saber coming in for the pit stop as Caffey still racing around. I think they might as well pit as soon as they end their lap.
Yeah, as we follow along board with Simon, this is also going to play huge. This is going to be huge for Simon. If they're able to keep this pace up, they might be able to get past Saber. And Saber or Simon on the fresher tires and pushing on their fast lap. So we'll have to see. They are now heading toward the penultimate corner, or the last corner actually. Let's see what happens. Saber is now down and away. Now they've got to keep the pit limiter up until they get to that signboard, and then at that point it's all bets off. As Simon even out, he just gets by, but guess what? Saber's got a tighter corner, but I think Simon has got it as they head down toward the corner. Yep, Simon has 100% got it. That's Saber in the back. Super unfortunate. Saber was not able to gain any spots off that, and unfortunately lost his spot to Simon.
Rather unfortunate case for Saber, but my point still stands. Where will Caffey end up? Cause Simon came out 3 seconds ahead, and Saber was 7 seconds behind. So if Caffey has a bad stop, this could really play into the hands of Simon.
It absolutely can, and it also depends on when Caffey goes in. I think they're trying to get it at the absolute last minute, and that's kind of risky, because if they time it wrong, that's going to be a huge penalty. That's going to be Caffey out of this race, and I think Simon's now just trying to gain as much time as they can on Caffey before pit stops. I don't really know the gap between Simon and Kathy. If it's under 30 sec, if it's
Wait!
under
Corkscrew! Caffey's had a spin!
that
Caffey's
is
had a
Kathy.
spin! Caffey's Caffey's the first victim, actually the second victim of the corkscrew corner. This is going to absolutely play into the hands of Simon. As we get a replay of Caffey coming down the rail straight. And
Yeah,
I
let's
was
take a
keeping
look.
my eyes on Caffey. It was breaking hard. It was looking all right here until the Porsche just loses control on him. Lucky they didn't tap the wall. But this is going to be an interesting case. And an interesting factor on how this race will go. It's either Simon or Caffey. And
They overshot the box.
Worse and worse. Caffey suffering another moment of just overshooting their pit box. This is really playing into Simon's hands. And I think Simon is edging out. It's going to be very close as Simon closes in onto turn 9, make that turn 10. This is going to be an interesting pit strategy because Caffey's fumbled their final lap, and now I think Simon's capitalizing. Caffey's gone off. Caffey's going on. It's going to be Simon versus Caffey. It's a drag race. It's Simon for the lead. Number 31, Aston Martin, in the lead of this race.
Definitely an unfortunate move for Caffey because they've not only lost one, they've lost 2 positions from this incident. Very unfortunate, but it's gonna now make things very interesting because now Caffey's got to go on a tear to gain all that time that they lost, both in the overshooting of the pit lane and the spin. And now it's just a matter of if Simon can keep that gap going, because now Caffey's going to be on the fresher tires and more fuel. And with 20 minutes left to go, Caffey is, I think, at least tire strategy-wise, is going to have an advantage.
Absolutely. Get on the edge of your seat, boys and girls and non-binary pals, because Caffey on a charge with those fresh tires. They are definitely raging down and putting down the power against Saber and Simon. And one factor here in Laguna Seca that might come into the hands of the two ahead is that Laguna Seca, a really tricky place to make those overtakes, but if Caffey's brave enough, then they might as well capitalize from those out of the circuit.
Definitely super unfortunate for Caffey. Everything went wrong for them in just a single lap, and that's all it takes in racing. One little mistake and it is game over. And now Simon's now got to really start working on that gap, because out of the 3 of them, they are the one with the oldest tires by a fair margin. And I think, something happened with randomly.
That's turn 10.
That is, turn 10, heading down to the last corner. Let's take a peek at what happened here. I think this is coming out of the corkscrew, heading down to the bottom of the hill. Did they go wide?
Not
the answer
quite.
is yes, they went really
a
wide.
bit loose on turn 9 and spun in turn 10. Thank God, Wushel! Wushel would have almost became a victim, but randomly stopping just in time. Pointing in the right direction as well. Let's take an onboard at randomly. Let's see how this feels in their position. No, actually Wushel. Because Wushel, you see the number 74 I go loose. It's gone. Just expecting the worst. But yeah, thank goodness Wushel avoided that.
Yeah, thankfully very unfortunate though the fact that Random was really in the apex of that corner when it happened, and that could have gone horribly because you could see Wushel was trying to go into the apex, and right as she did, unfortunately, she caught randomly at the last second and was able to avoid it. So hats off to Wushel for saving that move, for avoiding it.
Absolutely. Now going back to Simon, who is leading this race, that number 31 S Cargo Aston Martin, in front of all these pros. This is a dream race for Simon. All that they have to do is to keep it clean, don't make a mistake, and touch wood, hope everything comes his way.
It is knock on wood, but yes. Um, I mean, it is in fact knock on wood. But anyway, as you said, yes, Simon. All Simon has to do at this point is drive, keep that gap open, and hope that Caffey is not able to go on an absolute tear. But that could very well happen. I'm looking at the deltas. Caffey is on a absolute tear. They are faster by the other two by 0.3 of a second. That is massive. So at this point, Caffey is just trying to make up as much ground as they can. But the bigger question is, are they able to get by Simon and Saber? Because I don't see them letting them by very easily.
Absolutely. They want this win. They want this podium place. They want to be ahead of Caffey, the dominant figure who's currently finding himself in a difficult challenge, being right behind the GTR of Saber and the Aston Martin of Simon.
Yep, and Caffey is trying to eke out each lap. They are still within 0.2, but I also like to point out Simon's times. That's MNU. Yeah, that's MNU in the sand trap. I don't know what happened there, but Simon now getting lapped as we see. That is turn 6.
Absolutely. I think that's another victim of turn 6. Let's look at, if there's a replay, we might as well look at it. Here we go.
Here we go, heading up toward Rahal Strait, heading toward the walk bridge. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, the sausage curb struck again. 100% the sausage curb struck again, and then MNU was just slid straight across the road. Thankfully, they were the only one there, so no risk. But unfortunately, they did tap the wall a little bit, so that could be a little bit of damage for MNU.
Absolutely, as we look into Saber, who is currently 2 seconds behind, trying to chase Simon, and their last lap there, and Saber was 1/10 off of Simon, so Saber just closing in ever so slightly on that Aston Martin, but it's not making dividends so far, because Simon is on a rush, but so far he's keeping it clean, knock on wood.
Knock on wood, it stays that way, but he's got to hold them off for 15 minutes. And I'm looking at the times. It's been bouncing between Saber and Simon, and Caffey is just in another dimension at this point with their lap times. They're still about 0.3 up, but that gap is really, really massive. So they've got a mountain to climb, but it could be possible. It'll probably be within the last 5 minutes or so, if my math is correct. So we'll have to see as we keep following along with Saber heading down to the last corner. You can see Caffey way out in the distance. That's still, it's a large gap, but not an impossible gap as they head down toward the straight. No issues whatsoever. So let's just wait and see.
Absolutely, but speaking of, Caffey right now just stole the fastest lap off Saber. Caffey, the current fastest one on track, next to Saber and next to Simon. These three are edging closer to each other come the closing of this race, and this is going to put a lot of pressure on the number 31.
Ooh, that's not gonna help them though. That's not gonna help them much. That was very deep and that was a very squirrely.
Oh, and that's randomly come off. That's turn 10 again. I wonder what's happened.
Maybe they got loose again.
Let's look at the replay.
Let's take a look. Maybe it was the same thing from last time. Here we go. They just got out. They were just out of the corkscrew, heading into turn 9. Let's see what happens.
Oh, that Ferrari is really loose on turn 9. Yeah. Oh. Thankfully held on just in time to not touch the barriers, but unfortunate case for Randomy. That he was just a passenger trying to save the car as much as he can.
Yeah, I also like to point out that perfect lap time, a 1:22.1. That is a 10th off, or a little under a 10th off Saber's best time. So You can definitely see these new tires are definitely paying dividends. But the question is that gap too large for Caffey to actually be able to make up what they lost?
Absolutely, but Simon losing 7 tenths on their last lap. Saber closing in. Saber currently 1.5 seconds behind Simon, and Saber is currently the fastest one. Cappy going wide had that mistake. That cost him a lot of time. So Saber right now trying to make up that lost time against Simon and probably go out for a win. It's going to be an interesting battle between these three. Is it going to be another win for Cappy, or is it going to be a first win for anyone out here for this season? And that's Randomly again. I think that's Randomly again in turn
Yeah.
10. Randomly's just having troubles, and I think they've returned to pits and called it a day.
Yep, we've seen them. They've gone into pits. That's super unfortunate. Um, right now we could see Saber trying to get closing the distance, trying to get as close as they can, and it's so far working well. And we'll just have to wait and see. 10 minutes to a little under over 10 minutes to go. You can see Caffey in the distance, slowly but surely reeling the two of them in. And I think at this point, maybe Caffey's just hoping that maybe they get into a bit of a squabble, which could work out perfectly for Caffey. And I think that might be the game-changing factor. If these two get into a bit of a squabble, that's going to be time gained for Caffey.
Absolutely, Simon Locke. You can see there that rear wing. That is Saber's GTR. Godzilla is knocking on the door of the S-Car Go Aston Martin. Is inches closer and closer, coming into the corkscrew, but Simon keeping that gap as far as he can, but Saber is not going to give up.
Yeah, Yep, and MNU has been confirmed retired. Again, super unfortunate. This track has been very unforgiving. We've been seeing a lot of incidents here, and unfortunately, it's definitely not been working out for everybody. But you just got to keep going, I guess.
Absolutely, that is 4 retirements in this race. It's Azur, it's Vossi, it's MNU, and who else did I mean? That was Randomly. Yes, Randomly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and Randomly.
Anyways, coming into this battle for the lead, Saber under 1 second. That GTR closer than ever. And I think what's going on in Saber's head, he wants that win. He is going to do whatever it takes to try and get past that Aston Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. And Simon, I think at this point is probably wishing they hadn't quit so late, but they've got 10 minutes to go. All Simon has to do is keep Saber behind them for 10 more minutes as Saber reeling in that S-Car Go Aston Martin, trying to see them make a mistake. But they've also got one other thing to worry about, and that's Caffey, because they have also been trying their best to reel them in, and they have been almost on par with the top 2 drivers, or have been incredibly faster. But it looks like maybe their tires have finally worn off.
I can really sympathize with Simon right now. He has this much pressure coming to him in the last 10 minutes or so, and this is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, this might as well be their first win here in Simufur. I also received an additional announcement that MNU is back on track.
MNU is back on the track. I wonder if maybe they just pit the deal with the damage, but at this point, Saber and Simon Lupp are trying to maybe gain a little spot, but that was very loose of Saber. They got a little bit squirrely going into the corner, and it cost them dearly. Now the gap has increased again, heading into the corkscrew. Let's see what Saber can do as we ride on board, looking for any move whatsoever to see if they can maybe get anything out of this as we head down toward the final corner. And again, I want to point out, uh, actually, as I say that, I just looked at the time desk. We have a new fastest lap, a 1:21.9. Caffey is again on a massive tear. I'm beginning to worry if maybe Caffey is going to catch up to these guys before the end of the race, because that is definitely a very likely possibility despite the gap.
Absolutely, this is going to be a very interesting final 7 minutes. It's Caffey closing in, and Saber right behind Simon, trying to pry his way on into a position for the lead.
Yes, definitely, and you can see, every time we've followed these cars, I've been seeing Caffey in the shots, which means they are not far behind. They could definitely come back if anything happens, and that's something you definitely don't want, especially for Simon, who is trying to get a win for Escargot as they head down into the corkscrew. That Saber really deep on the brakes, and they're able to gain a lot of time doing that. And now Saber is going to do everything they can to get into get a move into maybe the final corner. We'll have to wait and see. Any second now, we'll have to see what Saber does. Really deep into the brakes again, and then really wide going out of the corner. Unfortunately, that's not going to help them much, but they're keeping it nose to nose as Saber is trying to find any way to get around Simon.
Yeah, Saber trying to look at every possible gap that Aston Martin can provide. That number 523 GTR's nose right up the bum of that Aston. Oh my goodness! Saber is driving really aggressively, and I'm loving it. And it's going to be an interesting race as he goes loose. Saber almost got loose there, lost a bit of time, but still eager to chase down that Aston Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. And look who's behind them as well. That's Caffey slowly reeling the two of them in. All it will take is one mistake from either of them, and that could add Caffey to the mix. And you definitely don't, and we don't want that, because that could be devastating for the two of them. But so far, any move right now could be game changing, as Saber is just sitting right on the back of Simon, trying to see if they can make a move as they head down toward the last corner. Saber again very deep on the brakes, right onto the nose of the Aston Martin, and so far Saber's just been getting close but no cigar.
Absolutely, Saber really putting on the pressure as 5 minutes remain of this race. Simon will have to defend these guys for, I think, around 3 to 4 laps. This is a lot of pressure, and Simon's just praying for the countdown to go to 0. So Saber goes a bit loose coming down turn 3. But as I was saying, Simon is praying that this timer goes down and that these laps, the checkered flag comes for him, and hopefully that would be a victory. But Saber and Caffey are trying to make sure that this doesn't happen. They want the win for themselves. Saber wants that first win as much as Simon, and Caffey there. As Saber goes down the inside of corkscrew, they touch as Simon takes the escape route, and that just opens up Caffey towards Saber. Saber tried to take a look down the inside of the corkscrew, but it just didn't match. But look, Caffey down the inside, Caffey right behind. It's the 3-man battle as Caffey goes down the inside, and Saber once again late on the brakes. Saber taking a move, and Saber stops. That's a brake check. That might have been a brake check, and it ran into the rear of that GTR.
Yeah, unfortunately, and also Caffey got collected into that, getting rear-ended by Saber, as it led to a domino effect. I think Saber actually hit the back of Simon again, getting really, really aggressive going into those corners. And now all three of these cars have damage. If that's the case. And now Caffey also lost a lot of time and now is going to have to fight through any damage that they got from that incident because that was a very hard hit into Saber. It caused him to bounce a little bit, and yeah, you could definitely see it. Caffey going very wide going into turn 6 or going to turn 5 as they head down toward the Rahal Straight, heading down toward the corkscrew. I don't think Saber's going to try to do that again because it didn't work the first time. It definitely won't work this time. And now Saber, I think, is going to maybe try to go on the defensive and keep Caffey behind them.
Absolutely, this race going down to the final wire. 2 minutes remain. 2 laps for Simon to try and stay ahead of these guys. But Saber is just not going to quit. Neither is Caffey, as they are getting really close to each other. Saber proving once again they can get up close and personal to the rear ends of cars.
Yeah, definitely. It didn't. Unfortunately for Caffey, that last time that they tried to do it, they rear-ended Saber, causing a little bit of a domino effect. But I think that helped out Simon more because I don't think they got any major damage because Simon is doing a very good job at keeping Saber and Caffey behind them. Now all Simon has to do is just keep it that way for 2 more laps as we head down turn 4, and that was a little squirrely from Saber, getting very, very wide as now Saber's got a big problem. They've got to either try to get Saber in, but that was Caffey getting very wide going out of the corner. That definitely won't help them as now Caffey is losing time trying to get around these cars.
Absolutely, this is going to be interesting. Saber once again late on those brakes as usual. The Caffey trying to carefully snake their way around and possibly try and move on Saber, but Saber once again closing in on Simon. There's a lot of pressure coming up in this Tikang Rally champion from what I've heard on their resume. But it's 1 more lap to go for Simon to take this win potentially, or for Saber or Caffey to steal it away.
Yeah, white flag is out. 1 more lap to go, and it is all holds barred. You've got only 1 more lap to do this, and I'm wondering if maybe Caffey's sitting back because they're wondering if they're going to get a repeat of Spa, in which Saber unfortunately caught the back end of Azure Goat and gave Caffey the win. But now
that is Saber going a bit wide, I think. I think that's going to open up for Caffey going round the outside. Caffey trying the outside line. Is it going to stick? I think Caffey's there. Brave move, but it just doesn't stick. Saber is still ahead coming down into turn 6.
Yeah, definitely a move that they tried to get to work, but it didn't work. Saber trying to make themselves wide. They're going to try again. Going deep into the corkscrew. That was their last chance, and it didn't work. Caffey has now got only a few corners left, and guess who's getting the benefit of that? That's Simon, because look at that gap. It's now growing, and now all Simon has to do is just keep this car on track, and they are going to do just that. Only 1 corner left, and it is going to be
Simon coming into the final corner, putting down the power. It's the first win for Simon. It's the first win for Escargot. Simon Luck 31 wins in Laguna Seca. Caffey almost gets Saber, but Caffey has to settle for 3rd.
What an amazing ending. It almost looked like they were going to have it as we have 1 more battle going on. That's between Newt and RK. Right on the back bumper. Is RK going to try to make a move deep into the last corner? No, not enough gap, not enough space. As we head down toward the last corner, that is going to be it, as Newt comes across the line ahead of RK. Nice job from the 2 of them, as Wushel now heading down toward the last corner. The Wushel thankfully has had, other than this small incidents, has had more or less an uneventful race, but hats off to Wushel for being able to finish as we wait for M&U to go down. As they're already flashing. They know it's over. Thank God. I think at this point it's thank goodness it's over as they head down toward the last corner. Nice and easy. Awesome job from all our drivers as we now see M&U cross the line.
Absolutely. I think MNU simply just happy to make the whole race here, as seen by that flashing. But whew, what a wonderful race we had! A new winner, an intense battle for the lead. This
Yeah,
race is this race is definitely the race of the season.
so far, yeah, definitely. Simon did an awesome job defending against, um, doing an awesome job defending against Saber and Caffey. As Simon gonna do a little few victory donuts in the background. Definitely deserved for what they had to go through. Awesome job, well deserved. It was definitely an interesting race, and hats off to all of them for giving us an amazing show.
That is for sure. That is an intense race. That had all the drama you wanted. Drama here, there, drama everywhere. It was just a race of attrition, and these these six these seven drivers made it across the line. Hats off to them. Unfortunately, we do have a few retirements, but we hope to see them continue on next week, as I think the next race on the calendar is Zandvoort, another twisty track. It's going to be hell for these guys, that is for sure.
Definitely gonna be one of those tracks that is really gonna be testing their fortitude. And thankfully, I just think at this point all of them are just glad it's over. This was definitely a track that is very unforgiving. One little mistake and it is over, as we've seen. But hats off to all of them. That was a job well done.
Absolutely. I think these standings will stay. There has not been much incidents that were very race defining, but anyways, let's talk about drivers of the day, shall we?
Absolutely. I have to give it to Simon, because not only did they end the streak, they had an amazing defense keeping Saber behind them. And I guarantee you, Simon's probably cleaning all the sweat off their rig if they aren't in a puddle at the moment. From
Absolutely.
Because that was definitely very brave of Saber. They were making very deep moves, and it almost cost them both. They were both able to save it in the corkscrew, but um, hats off to them. That was an incredible run.
Absolutely. Simon must be sweating bullets from that race, keeping the two of them right behind that rear end and just getting the job done, winning that race. But I also want to point out Newt, who didn't qualify that well from what I recount, but look at him. He's in P4. That is from P8 P up to P4. Excellent drive, just keeping it clean, staying away from trouble. Now that's what I like in a driver, keeping it consistent, keeping it clean. I know he's a shortcut Paliku'i driver, but hey, this is an incredible performance, whether he's part of my team or not.
Yeah, absolutely. They did an amazing job, and they kept it clean. They had a few scuffles, but they were able to not have anything horrible happen to
Major.
them, and they were, yeah, nothing major. And they just kept it clean, and look what it gave them. It gave them a P4. So good job for them. As we take a look at the final standings, that's going to be Simon, Saber, and Caffey being our podium, followed by Newt, RK, and Wushel. And wrapping out the top 10 is going to be MNU, Randomy, Azure, and Vossi.
Absolutely. And I think that ends it all. Next week, like as I mentioned, we will have Zandvoort. It's another twisty technical track that these pros will have to navigate. It's going to be another interesting one for sure, considering the Ferrari Challenge had this last week, and it was quite a hectic race. And so let's see what how these pros will navigate this track for sure. But closing out this broadcast, I am Suzuka Shark, alongside me Wolfin Foxdale, and as well as Paliku'i behind the cameras. And once again, see you next week for another round of the Simufur Pro Series.
Oh, have a good one, guys, and we'll see you next week.